What are some tips to help me as a buyer in a seller's market? That's what we're going to talk about in this video. Alright, so hello Internet. Welcome back. My name is Sztanyo from Keller Williams Realty and TeamStanyo.com, where we are helping you bridge to your future real estate dreams. And in this video, I want to give you 8 tips. If you're a buyer, how can you go out there and get that perfect house in a seller's market? And currently, there's no doubt it is a seller's market in Cincinnati, in Northern Kentucky. And what do we mean by that? We simply mean that usually inventory is low, the amount of houses that are out there for sale, and the amount of buyers is high. And so what you have is it's just simple economics, right? It's simple supply and demand. When the inventory is low, when the supply is low, right, and the demand is high, what you get are higher prices and a seller's market. So we're in that environment right now. It doesn't mean you can't get a house, but it does mean you need to be prepared. And so what I want to give you in this video are 8 tips on how to be prepared to go out there and get the home you want in a seller's market. So let's get to it. All right, tip number 1 is go and get pre-approved. I mean, you can pause this video right now, and I've got a lender you can call. But what do I mean by that? I mean, you need to go to the bank, and you need to do at least a preliminary kind of application to understand your financial status and what can you afford. And the reason why is when you go and you're out there in this seller's market right now and you find a house that you want, you need, when you submit that offer for the house, you need to submit a pre-approval letter as well. Why? Because there's a good chance that if it's a nice house that people are actually desiring, that seller is looking at multiple offers, and they want to look at the strongest offer. And if you submit an offer without a pre-approval, they might just dismiss it entirely because it doesn't seem very strong to them. They don't know about your financing situation. So before you go out there and start shopping and fall in love with a house, and you might not even be able to afford it, go talk to a good lender, and we can certainly give you a good recommendation and get that pre-approval in hand. So that's tip number 1, is get your pre-approval letter. Tip number 2 is go and hire a good real estate agent. And I don't know, this might seem a little too much on the nose, but the truth is, if you're a buyer in a seller's market, well, number 1, a real estate agent doesn't cost you anything, right? So the agent gets paid when the house gets sold and it comes out of the seller's settlement statement. So the commission to your agent, the buyer's agent, doesn't cost you a thing. So there's no reason why you wouldn't want a real estate agent working on your side. The second reason is you need to get access to the MLS. So when you're in a seller's market, houses are going quickly, right? Really fast. And so what happens is when a property goes on the MLS, that gets syndicated to all these different websites out there, Trulia and Zillow and Realtor.com, but all that information is from the MLS. So when you have a good buyer's agent working for you, you can define your criteria of what kind of house you're actually looking for, and they can set up a search portal for you where those houses are coming to you first before they get syndicated on all these other websites where all these other buyers are looking at them. So the advantage to that for you is that you might get a few hours in front of someone else when new properties are coming out on the market. In a seller's market, that's actually really important. Some of these properties are going within hours. It might have multiple offers within hours. So definitely get an agent. The third reason why is simply you want an agent who's experienced and who can negotiate for you. So that's just a no-brainer. Go out there, tip number 2, and hire yourself a good real estate agent. Tip number 3 is be ready to move fast. There is nothing worse than you go and you've been looking for homes and you're up late last night and you found the perfect one, and you call your real estate agent and say, hey, I want to go look at this, and we're like, great, and we set up the showing, and then we get a reply back on the showing and say, sorry, this property is pending, and somebody else already bought it, basically. So you need to be able to move fast, and there's a couple things you need to think about on this. One is just simply your showing strategy and when you can go do showings. And for some people, it's like, well, I can only get out on the weekends because I got the kids, I got the dog, I got the blah, 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 whatever, work schedules. And I understand it's difficult and challenging to line that up where you can move quickly. But if there's any way possible where you can get out on a lunch break or get out in the afternoon and not wait until the weekend when a new property comes out there, it's going to help, because on the weekend, all of those buyers are going to be coming, right? There might be an open house, or they're all lining up something on Saturday afternoon where they're going to see all the properties they want. If you can beat them to it by just a few days, that might give you the advantage you need in this seller's market. So that's tip number 3, be ready to move fast. Tip number 4 is make sure you place a fair offer, place a fair bid on the house. So when the demand is high and the inventory is low, sellers may often get multiple offers. So you don't want to overpay, but you also want to make sure your offer is fair on the price. So you don't want to, find a house that you love and then miss out because you tried to, save X amount of thousands of dollars on this end, which changes your payment, $50 a month or whatever it is. So what we recommend is work with your agent here to come up with a bidding strategy. So whenever you find the property you want, let the agent run the comps, say, hey, these are what the other houses are going for in this area, and I think if we bid this, it's a competitive offer, so let's do that. So that's tip number 4, make sure you place a fair bid. Tip number 5 is make your offer more attractive. Now, what do I mean by that? It doesn't necessarily mean that your offer is going to be a higher price. There are other ways that you can make your offer more attractive. Number 1 way to do that is to put down a fairly sizable earnest money deposit. So what does that do? That tells the seller that you're serious. Now, if the offer doesn't go through, that money comes back to you, no problem. But if you're liquid enough and if you can afford it, go ahead and put down a sizable earnest money, because that makes your offer stronger. It shows these sellers, yeah, these guys aren't going to mess around with my time. They're not going to cost me money. We're going to move towards clothing. Another way to do that is you can negotiate in terms of making the transition easier. So if there are things in the house that the seller wants to leave behind, fine. Whether or not you want that stuff or not, you can get rid of it later. So let's say they want to leave the swing set or a washer and dryer or whatever it is, a trampoline. Great. Yeah, no problem. I'll Craigslist that sucker, and we'll get the house that we actually want, right? The other point to be flexible with is the closing date. Maybe the seller wants to hang on a little longer, or maybe they need to get out quicker, or whatever it is. You want to be able to, you can make your offer more attractive by being willing to negotiate on these things, and you're still not necessarily making a higher price, but you can make a stronger offer by saying, yeah, we'll work with you. And in the long run, let's say it takes you 30 more days to get in a house or something like that. Who cares? You're getting the house you want, right? And that's a big deal. So be willing to be kind of flexible on some of those things. Okay, number 6, and this is a pro tip, so I hope you watched this far in the video, is write a personal note to the seller. What do I mean by that? What you essentially want to do is write a 1-page story of why we want to buy the house. And the reason why this is so powerful and important is, yes, there's all the numbers and there's all the technical things about your offer and earnest money. And yes, those things matter. But don't underestimate the power of emotion, right, when it comes to buying a house and getting that seller to come on your side. In fact, we've seen it many times when a lower offer is made in a multiple offer situation, and the seller actually chooses the lower amount because they want to give it to that family, right? Because they got a letter and they knew the story, and they're like, yeah, I want this family. I love this home. I enjoyed it, and I could really picture this family growing up in their house. And so tell that story. When you're, let's say, working to get pre-approved, or you're waiting on some of those things before you go out actually shopping for homes, it's a great time to sit down, write a 1-pager, say, we really want this a house like this. You can fill in the details later, right? But we want this house because our family's growing, or we want a yard for our dog, or we've always wanted to live in this neighborhood, or whatever it is. Tell your story, and you'll be I'm telling you, you'll be amazed at how powerful that is. If you submit that with the offer, it just gives it this little extra weight where you're pulling on the heartstrings of the seller, and that's a good thing. When you're in a competitive situation, anything like that, put a picture of your family in there, whatever you're willing to do to use emotion for your ally, basically, as you're going to make that offer to buy your house. So that's number 6, is write a personal note to the seller. Okay, number 7 is decide where you can compromise. So what do I mean by that? Well, in a hot market, in a seller's market, you might not be able to get every single thing that you're looking for in a house. So make sure you know when you're developing your criteria with your real estate agent, you definitely want to get the location down, right? You want to get the style of the home down and the size. But then when it comes to the other details, like is the basement finished or not, or is the master bathroom updated, or how big is the yard, things like that, those may or may not be deal breakers for you, but you need to work through this list yourself. What are the deal breakers? Where could you compromise? Are there specific areas that you could come back and finish that project later, but as long as you get that house in that neighborhood or that school district, or that style, or whatever your non-negotiables are, make sure you are really clear on those things, because when the inventory is low, there's a possibility that you might not find that perfect house that checks every single box on your list. So decide where you can compromise, and when those different properties come up, say, yeah, it's not perfect, but it checks off like 90% of our boxes, so let's go forward. Now, I would never say don't buy a house. I would never say to buy a house that you're not in love with, right? Or that you don't really want. But so wherever that list of things are that you can and can't take, make sure you decide on that ahead of time, so that when you need to move fast and properties are coming on the market, you can act quickly. And that leads us to our last tip, tip number 8, which is make sure you exercise patience. The truth is, when you're a buyer in a seller's market, it can be challenging, and you might find a house and it gets snatched out right from under you because someone else got to it sooner or had a better offer. And that's frustrating, and it can be stressful, and it's time consuming. And so, what I would say to you, if you're looking in a seller's market, is just be encouraged, like stay focused, and be patient, and know that sooner or later that right house is going to come around, and you are going to find it. So that's my encouragement to you, is just hang in there, stay focused, be patient. Don't let some of the houses you really wanted get away from you. Don't let that get you down, because sooner or later you're going to find that right house. All right, guys, so thanks so much for watching this video. If you liked it, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to this channel. We're going to be bringing all kinds of real estate videos and content for buyers, for sellers, for investors, covering everywhere in Cincinnati and Northern Kentucky. So I'm excited to bring more video content to this channel. Love to hear in the comments any other suggestions. If you're a realtor, give some comments. If you're a buyer, let us know if this was helpful, or any other thoughts. We'd love to hear from you. So thanks so much for watching, guys, and we will see you next time.